Hello, Twin Flames. I'm back with another episode of Twin Flame Channeling Messages. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Thank you for subscribing below. Click on that bell. Scroll up to all for all notifications. And thank you for giving the video a thumbs up. So I am back. I did this episode in part a few days ago. I started not feeling well. I don't know what's going on. Maybe ascension symptoms. So here I am finishing it and posting it on February 19th. It doesn't really matter when you're listening to this, but I just thought I'd give you guys a heads up that there is a lot of things in the way of ascension symptoms that tend to be going around of sorts. Because my sister and I were talking to each other, we were both going through some intense physical symptoms. And of course, we didn't know this until we got on the phone with each other. And actually, she called me in crisis mode. And I said, "Oh, thank God you're here because I'm having a crisis." And so there are a lot of physical symptoms that are happening in the collective currently. The channeling that I did is so interesting. And again, this is the third time I'm doing this for the Twin Flame Collective, and this is the third time that I start off channeling with one idea in mind, or one set of questions in mind, and then it turns out to be something totally different. Go figure. So today, the angels were speaking to me about the roles, if you will, that Divine Masculine and Divine Feminine have to move through. And this is really interesting because, again, it is a perspective that I had not really seen before. And it certainly opened up my eyes, and it made me pause for a little bit. And I still think I am processing this, but I will start the channel. And if you're new to this, then I would say for sure, go back and watch the first two that I did, or listen, rather. This is a podcast format. Listen to the first two that I did first, and then come back to this one, or do this one, and then definitely go back and listen to the other two. I do it in a written format. I channel prior to recording. I do it in a letter format, as if the angels and I are writing letters to each other back and forth. This is the way I started to do things when I started channeling for my twin flame journey years ago, and it's just a form that I have stuck with. So with no further ado, here is the conversation that I had via writing with my angels. Dear angels, let's talk about the Divine Masculine. Why are Divine Masculines in this collective, for the most part, so stuck? Dear one, it may appear so, but it is not so. Let us explain. The view you have as Divine Feminines in this collective is very narrow. You see one aspect, and that is all. However, when we look at things, we are able to see all, and we can assure you that this is not so. Dear angels, thank you for that. Then can you please explain the problem with Divine Masculines as a whole? And why they do things like ghost, block, deny the connection, and refuse to say their feelings? Divine Masculine twin flames have taken on the grand task of much needed work for the collective. We must remember that these are humans we are dealing with here. Humans have a much lower capacity or tolerance for adversity than you might think. We have given them gargantuan tasks to move through and overcome. You can't blame them for sometimes being on overload. Dear angels, I suppose I can understand that. How does that excuse bad behavior toward others, notably their Divine Feminine? It does not, dear one. As a Divine Feminine, you are given the task to hold up the boundary, hold up the wall, to show what behavior is acceptable and that which is not. We are not here to tell you to accept bad behavior. Dear angels, how might you suggest that Divine Feminines hold up this boundary? It is different for everyone. Maintain your integrity. You know what is right for you. Don't give in to false beliefs or false notions. Have faith in what is real. Dear angels, can you please give a concrete example of this? Holding up a boundary is not a wall. Many twin flames set up walls instead of boundaries. We want you to have self-respect and self-love, but not a fortress. Boundaries have gates so you can let others in. Thank you, angels. Can you give an even more concrete example of how a divine feminine can set up a boundary to not allow a divine masculine to ghost, block, or be inauthentic to push away? Stand in your power. State the boundary. Express what is right for you. Be willing to forgive. Only allow changed behavior to come forward towards you. It is simple, really. Why must it be so complex? Dear angels, it is complex because of emotions, and it is also complex because many are afraid of abandonment. The fear causes this, but love sets you up for more love. Dear angels, you mentioned that divine masculines have gargantuan tasks to overcome. Can you express what these are and why? Divine masculine has been hidden all of these years. What we have seen instead is something quite different. Divine masculine has to burst through, as in a difficult birth. Divine masculine has to push through layers and layers of garbage stacked up against the divine to come through. Imagine that each masculine twin flame has a tunnel. When they start, they are at the bottom of the tunnel. Layered on top of them are all the bastardized forms of the masculine. The bad habits, bad behaviors, renegade behaviors, misconceptions of life, and masculine energy gone awry. Mind you, the masculine twin flame is at the bottom of this and must make their way to the top through all of this garbage and mess. When they get caught up, they are literally caught up in one of these layers. Then, being the divine souls that they are, they can also get caught up in guilt and shame for the collective. When they hit a layer with so much badness, in quotes, they feel sorrow for what they have done as a collective to the feminine. This hurts them and can make them stuck without the strength to move on. In moving through, they must play out these roles. As a divine feminine, it can be easy to judge because the feminine cannot see all of the layers that the masculine is stuck under. And that is why we say that the masculine tasks are gargantuan. Dear angels, wow, I had no idea it was that intense for the masculine. I think this will help divine feminines understand better. If I may ask, what is the pathway for the divine feminines starting on the journey? Does it also look like a tunnel? Or is it much different? Divine feminines are the creators. They create the creation story. Their job is equal in difficulty, but not equal in intensity. Imagine being a painter and having a blank canvas in front of you. You have a palette of paints in one hand and a brush in the other. Oh boy, can this create turmoil. Imagine if you take your paintbrush, dip it in the paint, and just splatter paint all over the canvas. This can create chaos and disarray. Now imagine that you carefully dip your brush into one color at a time and carefully and mindfully paint a single dot or a brush stroke on the canvas. It will take a lot longer to complete, but you have control over the brush and the strokes. You are mindful about where this painting will go. You can imagine the finished product, though you might not yet be there. To do this, you must have agency over the brush. You must have control over where you set it down. You must have patience to see it through to the end. Divine feminines do not realize the amount of control that they have in this process. And yet, in haste, many create the turmoil by throwing the paint onto the canvas. Paint goes everywhere in all directions, and you are left with a mess and chaos. Creation takes maturity. Creation takes time. Creation takes vision. To this end, let us give you another example of how divine masculine and divine feminine are doing very different work, but how they do work together. Imagine now that divine feminine has reacted as a victim to the poor behavior of their masculine. The feminine is seething in anger and sadness over being a victim. This is the picture she is painting. Now let's move over to Divine Masculine in his tunnel. He has reached the layer where the masculine is the perpetrator to the feminine, who is the victim, a story which is played out over time. Since the feminine is creation and the masculine is working through the garbage, the feminine acting as the victim today is recreating a scene that Divine Masculine must work through again. So let's suppose that the masculine has already worked through the layer of being a perpetrator. He must then go back and rework that layer because the feminine just recreated that scene. Do you see how divine feminines, without knowing it or intending it, can push the masculine deeper back into the tunnel? Dear angels, wow, again, I had no idea it was this way, and I had no idea that the interplay was so close. I have so many more questions, but I must sign off here so I can record this and bring it to the collective. Thank you for your guidance and love, and I look forward to sharing more messages soon. Do you have a final note or a final message to the collective? Stay true to who you are. Don't sway or change because someone says it's so. Work through your differences with others. We need this collective to work together. You are all moving forward fearlessly, and for that we are proud. Thank you, angels. I love you so much, and I appreciate everything you've done to help along the way. We are obliged, dear one. So that was the channeling. And that totally blew me out of the water. It just blew me away. Now, in spiritual circles, and this is something that I personally learned from my first, and it wasn't my first mentor, but I think it was the first mentor in this phase in my life. Back in 2003, I discovered Dr. Wayne W. Dyer, who I absolutely adore. He is no longer living in this earth plane. He was an author, spiritual leader, speaker overall. And he was a major, major, major influence on my life. He was a major influence on everything that I do today. And he always spoke about co-creating your existence, like you are the co-creator of your own existence. You are co-creator with God. You are co-creator with spirit. So you do create your own existence. And it's something that I truly do believe. Now, let's go into this difference between feminine and masculine and what the angels were explaining. They were explaining that the women, I'm saying women, divine feminine, whether you're masculine or feminine in physicality, but the divine feminines in this have control, have power. They are the creators of this. They are the creators. And so to that end, can you imagine the enormous responsibility that the feminine has in this? It just brought to me the responsibility to a whole different level. The whole different level being that the divine feminine is co-creating this story. The divine feminine is the one who is allowing this to unfold as the story of creation of their story. And so it really puts into perspective for me when we get angry, frustrated, when we pull away from the journey, when we abandon the journey, when we move into other avenues of the journey, when we go and create relationships with other people out of spite, anger, frustration, impatience. Those are the stories that we are actually creating. It's astonishing on a whole new level for me. It's astonishing on a whole level of responsibility. And that's not to say that you are co-creating the behavior of the masculine coming towards you, because I believe that you're co-creators with the masculine, but the masculine is too busy working through the garbage of the past to correct where the masculine has been and where the masculine needs to move forward from this point forward. Whereas the feminine is correcting the notion that she's powerless. When all along she had the paintbrush in her hand. She is the one doing the creation. So both sides are correcting the notion of what they have. And the thing that astonishes me the most, and I will certainly talk about this in other videos because I can't even wrap my brain around this enough, is that all along, the masculine thought the masculine was in power, and it wasn't in power. It was the feminine that was in power. The creator, the story of creation. And so here we are, being dragged along as divine feminines, or as feminines in general, just being dragged along thinking that it's the masculine that has all the power, when that is completely not the truth. It was like we gave them that power. Somewhere along the line, somewhere in our ancestry, somewhere in the beginning of creation and humanity, we handed over that power to the masculine because we said, nope, I don't want to do this. It's more than just taking your power back. It's realizing how much power you have. That is the scary part. As a creator, is realizing how much power you have. And I appreciated the example that they gave. It was a little humbling, to be honest, but I appreciated the example that they gave about how if the feminine enters into the victim mindset because the masculine has done something to alienate them, to hurt them, to block them, to ghost them, whatever I spoke about before, and the feminine is sitting around acting like the victim, well, then that's just the painting she has just painted. She's painted that painting. And it doesn't change the reality of what has happened. Of course, if your divine masculine twin flame has blocked you, ghosted you, chosen not to speak to you or reveal their feelings to you, that's all true, right? That's all, it has all happened. But as the creator with the paintbrush and the palette, you, divine feminine, have the choice to create a new story around this. So what would be the new story? The new story would be divine feminines as a global whole will not allow the masculine to do such things. We won't allow it. So in not allowing it and not painting that picture, I am going to take that power into my power of creation to create that new story. And in this new story, here's how it goes. I let into my energy field, I let into my auric field those who are responsive to me in my story. And those are the ones that I allow into my field of vision and my energy field. Because again, you can't do anything to control what the masculine is moving through. The masculine needs to move through what they're going to move through. But you can control your reaction to it and how you choose to paint the next chapter of this picture book of life. So the more that divine feminine feels that she is not empowered, the more she is painting that on the canvas. Now, it doesn't just go to that, right? The more the feminine says, I'm not paid equal pay as the masculine, she is painting that on the canvas. So it's really about creating the new story, and what does that new story look like? And I'm not saying that is easy. The angels didn't say it was easy. The angels said that the feminine had just as difficult of a task as the masculine. It's just different in intensity. it's more responsible for the feminine. The feminine has to be so much more responsible in selecting and choosing how to create. And this reminds me so much of a series that I quote quite often, which is called Once Upon a Time. It was made by Disney, and it was probably between the years, please don't quote me on this, probably between the years like 2008 and 2017, or 2011 and 2017, something like that. And at one point, the young boy Henry discovers that he is the author of the storybook. And the wizard who hands him the pen says to him, no one should yield such power. The writer should write the stories, but not manipulate the stories. And so what did that mean? It just meant that as a divine feminine, for me, I'm going to translate this, right? As a divine feminine, it's not your job to manipulate for the overt extreme power of the feminine, right? When you write this story, it's to write the story as it is. So it means that you allow the masculines to be who they are. This is just an example, right? I'm giving you one example. You allow the masculines to be who they are because they need to work through their tunnel of garbage. So you're not trying to manipulate them into acting a certain way, being a certain way. But you're writing the story of the divine feminine has taken back her power, and now she shall be treated in a way that garners respect. And she's going to henceforth act as such. But the boy in this storybook, Henry, decides to break the pen in half because he said no one should wield that much power. And the thing is, he later learns that he can take on the responsibility of being the writer of the stories and being responsible, right? So he figures out, well, there is a usefulness to this, right? Somebody has to be the author. But the feminines do have a very difficult task at deciphering, deciding, having proper discernment, having maturity and the responsibility to take on the task of creating the story, co-creating the story, because it does take an enormous amount of responsibility. So I hope that, and this is, like I said, it's going to take me a while to really wrap my brain around this because it just came to me recently, like within the past 24 hours, I got all this. So it's going to take a while for me to unpack this. But what I do want to say is that hopefully, in a way, it'll help you, if you are a divine feminine, it will help you to understand the masculine in a very different way without accepting bad behavior. You don't have to accept the bad behavior into your field. You don't have to take the bad behavior on your back, and you most certainly do not have to be a victim to the bad behavior. You just have to assess it and create a new story with it that's going to alter the direction of things. That's not manipulative, but that allows you to take back your power of creation in what that storyboard does need to look like, what that canvas does need to look like. And I don't have the answer. So if you're asking me for a right answer on how to do this, I don't know yet. I certainly don't know. And it's going to be different for everybody as well. So I hope this was helpful, Twin Flame. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for subscribing to my channel below. Click on that bell, scroll up to all for all notifications. And thank you for giving the video a thumbs up. Thank you for sharing this video with other Twin Flames. And thank you so much for your support on my YouTube channel. You can buy a book or 2 or 3. You can join a boot camp or meditation course. You can also join my group coaching. The link is below. And I will see you in the next video.